If you're in a busy season of life, it is totally fine to not be as productive as normal. And it's not always a bad thing to take a break from producing new scenes or words. Sometimes it's actually really good for our creativity to get a little bit of white space. Welcome to the Fiction Writing Made Easy podcast. My name is Savannah Gilbo, and I'm here to help you write a story that works. I want to prove to you that writing a novel doesn't have to be overwhelming. So each week, I'll bring you a brand new episode with simple, actionable, and step-by-step strategies that you can implement in your writing right away. So whether you're brand new to writing or more of a seasoned author looking to improve your craft, this podcast is for you. So pick up a pen and let's get started. In today's episode, I'm doing something a little different than normal. I'm going to take you behind the scenes with me throughout my entire work week, and I'm going to share with you what I'm working on, what big projects I'm focused on right now, and basically anything that happens during the week, including any fun or interesting insights that come up as I work with other writers. And the reason I wanted to do an episode like this is because I don't know about you, but I'm always curious as to how people set up their day and what they're working on, and how they choose what they're actually going to work on that week. And so sometimes on Instagram or wherever, I'll see people post things like, okay, here's what I'm working on today, or here's how I set up my planner, or here's how I manage my calendar, and I'm always intrigued. So I thought you might be curious to know what I do all day as an editor and a book coach, what I focus on and how I navigate through my many, many action items. So that is what this episode is all about. And I'm not really sure how it's going to go or if you will find this interesting, but we will see. So let's dive right in for a Sunday update. Okay, so this is my very first entry for our behind the scenes podcast episode, and it is now Sunday evening, which is when I normally sit down with my planner and take a look at everything I have coming up for the week. But before we dig into all of that, I wanted to tell you something that I did today that was really fun. It is one of my dog's birthdays today, so Forrest turned 2, and we rented out the pool at this boarding facility nearby to have a dog birthday party. And it was really fun because we had about 15 dogs there, including Forrest's dog dad, and every dog that came to the party is related to Forrest. So some are his litter mates and others just have the same parents, but they're from a different litter. So that was really, really fun. We were there for over 2 hours and the dogs are exhausted. And yes, I know I'm a dork about my dogs, but I don't care. They're wonderful and they deserve the most awesome experiences in life. So that's what we did earlier today, and now all 3 of them are napping hard, which brings me back to planning out my work week. I have a lot of big things to get done this week, and that's part of why I like to map out my work week on Sunday evenings. I like to know what's coming down the pipeline, and I like to make sure I have enough time to get everything done. And if I don't, then I can take care of that first thing Monday morning. So moving things around if I need to and stuff like that. But I try not to do that too often if I can help it. I like sticking to my plan. So this week, I need to finish recording some lessons for my Notes to Novel course. I need to record some podcast episodes. I have to finish a manuscript evaluation for one of my clients, and then I have coaching calls with other clients. I need to debrief the book club meeting that we had last week. So I like to go through all the feedback that people send in and see what they liked or didn't like, and then download my thoughts on what worked and what didn't work while it's all fresh in my head. And then usually Abigail and I will get on the phone at some point and just talk through everything and what we want to do next time. So this just helps us make the book club better for the next meeting, and I think it's really important to do. And I'm looking forward to going through all of the feedback that people sent in. And then on Thursday, I have 2 group calls. So one of them is a Q&A call with the students in my Notes to Novel course, and the other is a Q&A call with the writers who are in my Story Lab membership. And I'll talk about those more on Thursday since that's when those calls are happening. I also need to record a bonus training for my Notes to Novel course too, so a lot of recording going on this week, which in hindsight, that makes sense because I tend to group things like this together. So if I have a big recording week or a week where I have to do a lot of video or presentations like that, I'll usually give myself an easier week the following week because I am an introvert through and through, so I need time to recharge my batteries. So anyway, those are kind of my big projects. And then I have a whole bunch of other little things that I have to do, like answering emails, getting some of my tax stuff ready, setting up some Facebook ads for my latest masterclass. And I usually work on my clients' pages throughout the week too. So I look at all of this stuff on Sunday just to make sure I know what's coming up and then to mentally prepare for everything that's on my plate. So that is my Sunday update. Wish me luck. I'm hopeful that I'll be able to get most of my to-do list done, especially since I'm taking you along with me. But things always seem to come up, so we'll just see what happens. And anyway, I'll be back tomorrow morning to tell you what I have going on Monday. So I will see you then. Hi there, it's Monday morning and I have a busy day today, but so far I'm feeling pretty good about getting things done. We all slept really hard yesterday after the big exciting doggy birthday party, so I am ready to go, and the dogs are still pretty tired, which is great because I have a lot of recording to do. So that's what today looks like. I'm going to record 3 lessons for one of the modules inside my Notes to Novel course, and I'm actually really excited about this because the whole program just got a makeover and almost everything has been updated and re-recorded. And the cool thing is that once you are a part of the Notes to Novel program and community, you will always get the updated version of the course. So if any of my past or current students are listening, don't worry, you will get all of these updates. So I'm really excited to share all of the new stuff with my existing students and all of my new students as well. And that's one of the things I have to do today. The other thing I have to do is record 1 podcast episode and outline 3 other ones. So you might not know this, but I like to batch record my podcast episodes, and that's mostly because there are some weeks where I wouldn't be able to put out a new episode if I was recording week to week, just because I get too busy. But also there are some weeks where I just get really excited about recording episodes and my energy is high, so I like to lean into that because I also know I'm going to have low energy weeks as well. And this is something that I've been tracking over the last 12 months because I've noticed that my energy levels really do fluctuate throughout the month. And instead of beating myself up for not getting as much done during a low energy week, I now just schedule low energy activities for that week and it works out much better. So if you haven't ever tried anything like that, or if you haven't ever tracked your energy, you might want to give it a shot. You might be surprised at what you learn or how much of a pattern you actually operate on, because I know I was pretty surprised and it's been a really helpful exercise. So anyway, I'm going to record 1 episode and then edit that episode, and then I'm going to outline 3 more. Other than that, I need to go through and respond to my emails because it is Monday and there are always a lot of emails. I need to take the pups on a walk whenever they're done napping, and I also need to get some Facebook ads scheduled. And Facebook ads are something I'm not very good at yet, so those are going to take me a little while to get set up. But anyway, that's what my Monday looks like, and I will be back this evening to give you a quick update, so I will talk to you then. Okay, I'm back and it's Monday evening now, and I am happy to report that I pretty much got done what I needed to do today, so that's great. I don't do any client work or client calls on Monday because I usually set aside the whole day for bigger projects like the podcast or something to do with one of my courses or things like that. So this was one of those days where I just needed to get a lot of those bigger things done, and I did, so that feels good. Now, tomorrow will be dedicated to getting client work done, and this is typical of most of my Tuesdays. So you'll see what I mean tomorrow when I do my morning update. But I like to do different types of work on different days because otherwise, if I'm doing little bits of everything, it just feels too hectic. So sometimes that does happen and it is what it is, but when I can, I like to dedicate whole days or even half days to a certain type of work. But anyway, for today, I'm feeling pretty good about where I'm at, and now it's time to walk the dogs and have dinner and stuff like that. So I will sign off for today and be back first thing tomorrow, and I will talk to you then. Hi there, good morning. It's Tuesday now, and I'm checking in to share what I have going on today. So yesterday I mentioned that today is all about client work, and that's really the majority of what I will be working on today. So first I have to finish up a manuscript evaluation for a client of mine, and then I have to read through a few scenes and give feedback on those scenes for a few other clients because we have coaching calls coming up this week. I also need to reach out to Abigail, who you have heard on this podcast before, and you probably know that we run the book club together, but I need to reach out to her because we need to talk through our picks for the next book club meeting in March. So I'll probably try to do that today if she has some time. If not, I'll do that at some point this week. But yeah, that's what I have going on today. So I think I will leave my morning update at that. And then I will be back later to tell you how everything went and to share anything interesting that happened during the day. So I will talk to you a little bit later. Okay, so now it's Tuesday evening and I'm about to wrap up my workday, but I wanted to check in and share how everything went. So first of all, I did not finish up everything I needed to do for that manuscript evaluation that I'm working on, but I did make a good amount of progress, so that's okay. I can finish it up tomorrow or the next day. But here's something interesting I wrote down in my notes while working on that manuscript evaluation that I wanted to share. So basically, I've noticed that sometimes writers who write a story with multiple point of view characters will have trouble writing one of their point of view characters, and it's usually the character they most relate to. So usually the character that's the same gender that the writer is, or the same age, or whatever. Really, whichever character the author has put more of themselves into. So I've noticed this with enough authors at this point that it definitely seems like it's a thing, and it's really interesting to me. It's almost like writers have a hard time putting the character they most relate to through conflict and like tapping into that character's inner emotional life, but they don't have as hard of a time putting their other point of view character through conflict or showing that character's thoughts and feelings on the page and things like that. So I don't know if you can relate to what I'm saying, just know you're not alone. It's something I see quite often. The other thing I wrote down to mention to you today is that I was working on a set of scenes for another client who I have a coaching call with tomorrow, and we're about halfway through the rewrites of her draft at this point. So I noticed that her scenes were suddenly feeling a lot stronger than they had in previous weeks. And what's interesting is that the first time she got to this place in her draft, and let's just call it scene 15 or whatever. So the first time she got to scene 15, she told me that she felt like things were getting easier because she had internalized everything we'd been working on for the last 14 scenes. And now she was integrating everything she learned into her new scenes. So anyway, the second half of her first draft was much stronger than the first half. And now that we're coming back around to that section of her story, it's pretty cool to see. It's almost like the first half of her draft was like first draft quality, and now that first half is becoming second draft quality. But the second half of her story was already at second draft quality, and now it's becoming more like third draft quality. And I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but this is something I see happen a lot. So what will probably happen is that this author will have a draft that is stronger on the back end than the front end once she's done with this version. And if that's the case, we're probably just going to go back to the front half and spend some extra time there before moving on to the next stage. Because at some point we do want to balance out those halves so that they're both the same quality, if that makes sense. So I wanted to share this because I think it's interesting, but also it might be happening to you. And if it is, I just want you to know it's normal. I see this happen a lot where it's like that first half of the draft ends up needing a lot more work to kind of bring it up to the quality of the second half. So if this is happening to you, it's normal. And anyway, that's just a fun little behind the scenes tidbit. Now, something else I did today was I looked at the stats for the Fiction Writing Made Easy podcast in 2022. So at the end of the year, I like to pull stats for this podcast just to see how things are going and how our listener count compares to last year and what the most popular episodes were and things like that. So I am a little late because we are at the end of January, but that's okay. Better late than never. And anyway, one of the really interesting things I found while pulling this information today is that we have many, many listeners in Australia. So Buzzsprout, who is my podcast host, they provide me a list of the top cities where our listeners live. And get this, Sydney, Australia and Melbourne, Australia represent the top two cities where listeners download episodes. And then following that is Chicago and Los Angeles, both in the United States. So I thought this was super interesting. And if you are in Australia, I would love to hear from you. So come find me on Instagram at savannah.gilbo or leave me a review letting me know that you're a listener from Australia and what you like about the show or what kind of book you're writing. I think it's so fun that this podcast has listeners in Australia, and I have actually been to both Sydney and Melbourne, and I had a really great time in both cities. So shout out to all of my listeners in Australia. But anyway, that is my Tuesday update. Lots of client work today, but that's pretty typical of a Tuesday, so nothing too surprising for me there. Tomorrow, I have a coaching call with one of my clients, and then I'm recording a podcast interview, as well as doing some more client work and some other little things here and there. So I'm going to sign off for now, and I'm going to go walk the dogs, but I will be back tomorrow morning for a Wednesday update, so I will talk to you then. Hello and happy Wednesday. I'm here for our morning check-in, and today I have a few different things going on. So first, I have a call with one of my one-on-one coaching clients, and then I'm going to record a podcast interview with one of my other clients after that. So those are the two big things I have to tackle this morning. And then after that, I'm going to review the questions that came in for two Q&A calls that I have tomorrow. So one of them is for my Notes to Novel students. So if you're currently enrolled in the Notes to Novel course, I will see you tomorrow for our hour-long Q&A. And the other Q&A I'm doing tomorrow is for my membership. So for those of you who don't know, I have a membership that writers get invited into once they've taken my Notes to Novel course. And the membership is called the Story Lab. So basically inside of this membership, there are different weekly deliverables. So in the first week of the month, there's an hour-long training on a different writing, editing, or publishing topic. And then in the second week of the month, we have group coaching where I pick 3 to 5 writers to come on camera with me and talk through whatever's got them stuck. Or maybe we'll go through a scene to talk through what could be improved or anything like that. In the third week, we all look at a scene together from either a published novel or a work in progress novel, and we pick it apart to see the structure and what's working or not working and things like that. And then in the fourth week of the month, we have our Q&A session. So this is what I'm doing tomorrow. And basically, I just jump on Zoom with all of my Story Lab members and we do an hour-long Q&A. So I have to get ready for both of those Q&As tomorrow, but that shouldn't take too long. And I actually get really excited about going through all the questions just to see what's on people's minds and, just get prepared for all that. So I'm excited to do those tomorrow. And then after I get ready for those, I'm going to finish up that manuscript evaluation that I did not finish yesterday. So I do need to get that done today. And then I have some client feedback to do because I have client calls on Thursday and Friday. So once all of that is done, if I have some time left over, I might edit some podcast episodes that I recorded yesterday, or I might get sucked into emails. I'm not really sure what that's going to look like, but we will see. And I will be back later to check in and let you know how things went. So I will talk to you a bit later. Okay, I'm back for a quick update. It's Wednesday evening now, and I pretty much got done what I wanted to do today. I feel like there's always so much on my to-do list, but it really helps me to prioritize the 3 to 5 big things that need to get done and then kind of filter everything else in around those 3 to 5 big projects. So that's kind of what I do. Both of my calls this morning went great, and I'm very excited about the upcoming Student Spotlight episode. So you will hear the episode that I recorded on Valentine's Day, and it's a really fun one. It was really neat and special to look back on this writer's experience because she's come a long way in the 2 years that we've worked together, and I am so incredibly proud of all the work that she's done. So I won't spoil it for you since it will be out soon, but anyway, both of the calls went really well. And then after that, I was able to finish up the manuscript evaluation and send it off to the writer, so that was great. I'm looking forward to discussing the feedback with her because the story is actually in pretty good condition. So I think she'll be pleased to hear that, but I think she will also be glad to have some direction around what she can still improve on. So that project is done for now, and I also got my other client work done, so that is great. The other thing I did today was that I had to write some emails for an event that I'm speaking at coming up at the end of February. So I will be speaking at Pro Writing Aid's Fantasy Writers Week again this year, and I'm very excited because their events are always amazing, and they tend to have really awesome speakers. So I can't wait to both present something and also tune into the other presentations as well. But I did have to do some admin stuff around that, like craft those emails, which you will receive soon if you're on my email list. And I had to confirm my presentation topic and, just things like that. So I got that done. And then I also put together a slide deck for a bonus training that my Notes to Novel students will be receiving soon. So this is my Next Steps DIY story editing workshop. And it's an hour-long training about what to do first, second, and third once your first draft is finished. So it will walk my students through the different stages of editing and help them know what to focus on when. So I made the slide deck for that today, and there are a ton of examples in there, and now I just need to find some time to record it by the end of the month. So I'm glad I was able to get that going and mostly finished today. And other than some emails and some boring tax prep stuff, that was kind of my whole day. Now, something you might not know about me is that I actually make my dogs food. So that is what I'm going to do right now, and then I will probably take them on a walk while it cooks in the Instapot, or maybe after, I'm not sure yet. Have you been dreaming of writing a novel, but you don't know where to start? Or maybe you've tried writing, but you keep getting stuck halfway through a draft? If so, I have a free training you're going to love. It's called 3 Things You Need to Write Your Novel in 2025, and in this free 60-minute training, I'll share the exact same process my clients and students have used to go from idea to completed manuscript in just months, not years. You'll also learn why most writers never finish their drafts, and spoiler alert, it's not a lack of talent or good ideas, as well as how to overcome feelings of perfectionism, self-doubt, and overwhelm that stops many new writers in their tracks. You can register for this free training at savannahgilbo.com/masterclass. So one more time, that's savannahgilbo.com/masterclass to register for the free training. I hope to see you there. And you could probably just hear one of them crying because I said food and they all love that word. But yeah, basically I make 2 weeks worth of food every other week. So that's what I'm going to do. And yes, I know they are spoiled. They eat like kings and queens, but that's because they're worth it. And if you're curious what I make them, I follow a nutritionally balanced recipe from a company called Just Food for Dogs. So you can Google them and check them out if you have dogs or cats, because I think they make cat food too. But they have these DIY kits and these nutrition blends that you basically mix with the real food that you cook, and you can freeze it, or you can just make one batch and then they can kind of eat it that week or whatever you want to do. So I'm going to go make them their extra special turkey macaroni food, and I will catch up with you again tomorrow morning. So I will talk to you then. Good morning. It's now Thursday, and I'm really excited for what I have on the calendar today. So I mentioned this yesterday that I had 2 live Q&A sessions to do today. One is for my Notes to Novel students, and the other is for my Story Lab members. And I'm really looking forward to these because I love seeing all of my students, and I love hearing all of their updates about how their writing is going. And I love answering their questions or helping them brainstorm things or get unstuck or whatever it is. It's always just so much fun. So I have 2 of those calls today. And then in between those calls, I'm going to catch up on client work and some miscellaneous admin stuff that I just need to get done. So that's really all I have for you this morning. I will be back later today to let you know how everything went. Okay, I'm back and it's Thursday evening now, and I am actually quite exhausted. I developed a migraine shortly after doing my morning update, so that has been lingering all day. And if you get migraines, you know how hard they make it to actually get work done. So that has been a bit of a battle for me today, but I wanted to come on and do a quick update to tell you about some of the things that we talked about during my Q&As today. So first, one of my students brought up the topic of writing from multiple points of view, and she was asking if she could include another point of view and or her antagonist point of view in her story. And I wanted to share a little bit about what we talked about today because it's something I think we should all consider when writing our own stories. So basically, I asked her why she wanted to include other points of view or how they would benefit the reader. And she said that she hadn't really thought about that yet, so we talked about it a little bit. And I said, okay, well, do you want your reader to know more than your protagonist knows? Because if you show another character, or let's say you show your antagonist point of view, the reader is going to know more than your protagonist, right? And if so, that will evoke a different feeling or give readers a different experience than if they know the same amount of things as your protagonist. So in other words, if your readers know as much as your protagonist knows, the reader will likely be curious about how things will turn out, and they'll feel anticipation because they don't know what's coming. But if they know certain things from, let's say, your antagonist point of view that your protagonist does not know, well, then that is going to evoke a different feeling. And it's usually one of concern because now we know more than the protagonist. So we worry and we feel concerned for them when they inevitably find out what we know. So anyway, I think this is worth taking a few minutes to consider just how you want your readers to feel, how you want them to experience your story, especially when considering something like using multiple points of view or showing your antagonist point of view. So that's the first thing. And then something else that came up was this idea of what do you do if your life is actually like really busy right now? Or what if you're going through a busy season? How do you force yourself to get your writing done? And this is a good question because we all have busy weeks or months or seasons. And what I've noticed is that we all tend to force ourselves to do all the things when really it's just not realistic. So with this particular writer, we talked about what would happen if he just took the next month off from his writing, or what if he just had zero expectations of what he would or wouldn't get done? Or what if instead of having a strict goal of something to do with writing X amount of scenes or X amount of words, what if he just gave himself permission to do creative creative exercises like journaling from a character's point of view, or maybe even some admin tasks like updating his outline to match the scenes he already wrote, or something like that. So what would it look like if we just thought outside the box? And I wanted to share this with you because if you're in a busy season of life, it is totally fine to not be as productive as normal. And it's not always a bad thing to take a break from producing new scenes or words. Sometimes it's actually really good for our creativity to get a little bit of white space. So I don't know if this resonates with you, but I think sometimes it's hard to give ourselves permission to take it easy when life gets busy. And I think collectively we might want to be a little easier on ourselves because sometimes you really can't do it all and stay sane and have fun, right? You just can't. So I thought that was an interesting thing that came up, and I just wanted to share a little bit about what we talked about. And really, both calls were so much fun, and my students always ask excellent questions, so I always have a wonderful time talking to them. So shout out to all of my Notes to Novel students and my Story Lab members. Hanging out with you tends to be the highlight of my week, so thank you for showing up and always making things so fun. Now, tomorrow I have 2 client calls, and then I usually use the second half of Friday to catch up on admin stuff or any of the tasks that I haven't gotten done throughout the week. So other than my calls, I'm not 100% sure what that's going to look like tomorrow afternoon. And if I'm being honest, my migraine does not even want me to go there today or think about it. So I'm just going to sign off for now, and then I will be back tomorrow with my Friday update. So I will talk to you then. Good morning. It's finally Friday, and I'm about to get on my 2 client calls, so my morning update is going to be really quick. Like I mentioned yesterday, I have these 2 calls, and then I'm going to catch up on some other things, so I'll be back to update you on what those things look like this afternoon. But for now, happy Friday, and I will talk to you later. Okay, it's Friday evening now, and I'm just about wrapped up for the week. Other than my 2 calls this morning, I had a few sets of pages that I needed to review and provide feedback on for some clients. And then I was able to edit another podcast episode that I recorded earlier this week. And I also got to record half of the bonus training for my Notes to Novel program that I mentioned earlier in the week. So very excited about that. And speaking of exciting, I also got one of my clients' books in the mail today, and that was such a fun surprise. It's always a very happy day to get the physical book that you know someone has poured months or years of blood, sweat, and tears into and actually hold it in your hands. So that was very cool, and naturally I had to take some photos of his book next to my dogs because he is a dog lover too. So I took some photos of his book next to my dogs and I sent them to him so he could see that his book made it here safely. And yeah, it was very exciting and very fun. Now, this weekend, I am going to finish up reading a book that Abigail and I are considering for our next book club meeting. And I won't give away the title, but we really want to do a mystery or thriller for our upcoming meeting in March. So stay tuned for the book that we pick. We are going to announce that soon, but I'm really looking forward to finishing the one we're considering because I'm almost to the global climax and I've been thinking about how it's going to end all day. So I can't wait to get to that later. We also have some plans to take the dogs to this really big dog park, and we're going to meet their dog brothers there. So that will be really fun. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the weekend and just taking a few days to decompress, get some stuff done around the house, and just spend time with my dogs being cozy. It's all very exciting sounding, I know. I plan to do a Saturday update tomorrow, but I think I'll just go ahead and wrap up the week here. So one last thing I want to say before we officially wrap up is that I did not get every single little thing done on my to-do list this week. So for example, I wanted to record and edit that bonus training for my Notes to Novel course that I mentioned, but I only got halfway through recording it, and that's okay. I'm just going to push it to next week. And like I did at the beginning of this episode, I will review everything I didn't get done this week, along with what I have to do next week, and then just make a plan to get everything done. So I will do that on Sunday. And really, all of this stuff is an ongoing process and things always come up. Like I said, I got a terrible migraine this week that definitely prevented me from getting as much done as I normally would, but it is what it is. I got a lot done this week, but I'm a perfectionist, so I sure do wish I could have gotten everything checked off the list. But again, I know that's not realistic. So anyway, I just want to be totally transparent because there's hardly ever a week where I get every single thing on my to-do list done, but I do try my best and that's what counts, right? So that is the end of this Week in the Life episode, and I hope you enjoyed coming along for the ride this week. I know I sure had fun. I got to share some of the things with you that I typically don't get to talk about on this podcast because normally I'm talking about how to write or edit or publish a book. And it was just fun taking you behind the scenes with me and sharing some of the things I don't get to talk about much. So I hope you enjoyed the journey with me, and I will be back next week with another new episode. So I will talk to you then. So that's it for today's show. As always, I want to thank you so much for tuning in and showing your support. If you want to check out any of the links I mentioned in this episode, you can find them over at savannahgilbo.com/podcast. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to the show because there's going to be another brand new episode coming out next week. If you're an Apple user, I'd really appreciate it if you took a few seconds to leave a quick rating and review. Your ratings and reviews tell iTunes that this is a podcast that's worth listening to. And in turn, that helps this show get in front of more fiction writers just like you. So that's it for today's show. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Until then, happy writing.